Hello and welcome to episode 127 of the How to Survive podcast. And today we're talking about something that's borrowing heavily from the 80s, using a lot of techniques and methods that are outdated and since surpassed by things that a lot of people would consider better. It's Joe Sherville.
I'm not even from the 80s.
I don't know. This week we're talking about The Void. It's the Jeremy Gillespie and Stephen Konstanski 2016 80s horror throwback.
Who, sorry?
That's Jeremy Gillespie and Stephen Konstanski.
Right.
I can't believe you need that bared repeating.
Doesn't really roll off the tongue like the Coen brothers.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what does roll off the tongue, Joe. The Void. The title, The Void. And that's the film we're covering. It's available on Amazon Prime in the UK. To rent for 99 pence. You get a whole week to watch it as well. Rather than
They're giving it away.
Yeah, exactly. And it's worth a watch if you like splattery practical effects, 80s horror movies, monster movies, and plots that are thin on the ground.
I think it's worth watching, and if you don't watch it, I think it's still worth listening to this podcast, because I think a lot of what we say will apply to a lot of movies in the film theory perspective.
Yeah, and also, as we just alluded to, there's not, I guess, huge plot twists to be spoiled or anything.
No.
But it's an interesting film to discuss, I think. As ever, we will be discussing it with full spoilers after a plot recap. So now's your chance to duck out if you don't want the plot spoiled. But otherwise, let's head fully into The Void.
Haven't you ever wished to save someone beyond saving, no matter what the cost? This is uncharted territory. The body has to adjust, of course. We weren't built for this kind of thing. You'd be surprised at the things you find when you go looking.
There is something calling them all here.
What if those people get in here? What are we supposed to do?
You saw it? What was that?
Do you know where you go when you die? I do.
Drug addict James flees a remote farmhouse followed by a screaming woman. The pair are chased by two assailants who gun down the woman before burning her alive. Shortly afterwards, Deputy Daniel Carter finds James and takes him to a local hospital where his estranged wife Allison works, along with Beverly and Kim, who are nurses, pregnant teen Maggie and her grandfather, who are patients, and Dr. Richard Powell. It becomes apparent that Daniel and Allison separated following the death of their infant child.
Yeah, it does take an hour to explain that part of the plot, though.
Well, I think it's clear
something's implied.
If you've seen a movie before, you can probably guess.
Yes, but you don't know what the situation. You know they lost the child, but you don't know what the circumstances were, and it takes far too long to explain it.
Shortly after his arrival, Daniel discovers Beverly murdering a patient while in a trance and cutting her skin from her face. She advances towards Daniel, who shoots her dead. He then suffers a seizure and experiences strange visions and passes out. When he wakes up, Daniel goes to his car to report the nurse's shooting, but is attacked and stabbed by a hooded cultist, a large number of whom now surround the hospital. And they're wearing basically Ku Klux Klan outfits with a black triangle.
Yeah, on the head.
It's quite good imagery, I think.
It is, yeah, but that's about it.
The group now discover that Beverly has transformed into a grotesque, gigantic, tentacled creature. They rescue James from the room and lock Beverly inside, only for the two men from the introduction, who are a father and son pair named Vincent and Simon, to suddenly arrive at the hospital, holding everyone at gunpoint and demanding to get to James. In turn, James takes Maggie, the pregnant girl, hostage in self-defense and stabs Dr. Powell. Meanwhile, Beverly escapes her room, but Daniel, Vincent, and Simon manage to kill it. The trio then venture to get a shotgun from Daniel's car. Meanwhile, Allison looks for medicine for the increasingly unwell Maggie, unaware that Dr. Powell has resurrected behind her. When Daniel returns and discovers Allison is missing, he leaves Maggie in the care of Nurse Kim and her grandfather and heads to the spooky basement with James, Vincent, and Simon. There they find evidence that Powell is the cult leader, and James tells the group that Powell has the power to resurrect people. Allison wakes up immobilized on a hospital bed and discovers Powell cutting all of his skin off. He explains that he has discovered a way to resurrect people in response to his daughter's death. He also shows Allison that something now grows inside of her. Daniel, Vincent, Simon, and James discover a hidden sub-basement area which is full of mutilated and deformed corpses, which then come to life and attack the group, killing James and separating Daniel from the others. Upstairs, Maggie appears to be mortally unwell, panicking her grandfather. As Kim steels herself to perform an emergency C-section, Maggie kills her grandfather and reveals that her baby is Dr. Powell's. Kim hides as the remaining cultists enter the hospital. Back in the basement, Daniel finds the room in which Allison is being held, which to him appears as a delivery room with Allison pregnant inside. He soon realizes this is a vision and sees a tentacled creature erupting from Allison's body. He euthanizes her with an axe and confronts Dr. Powell. Powell claims to have conquered life and death and opens a triangular portal on the wall.
Yeah, under his hospital.
Yeah, well, it all gets a bit sort of
Insane.
mystical.
Yeah.
Like they're not physically moving in spaces anymore. It's all
Yeah. They're seeing apparitions and hallucinations and
Yeah.
stuff, and it's
Maggie appears and stabs Daniel before Powell begins reciting an incantation which causes Maggie's belly to explode, revealing Powell's reborn daughter, which is in fact a hideous monster, in case you thought it was going to be a perfectly healthy baby.
Yeah.
Vincent and Simon arrive and battle the beast, and Vincent sacrifices himself to set it on fire, which doesn't actually kill it though.
No.
As Powell begins transforming, he tells Daniel that he can be with Allison if he gives himself to the abyss. Instead, Daniel tackles him and they both tumble into the void through the portal. Meanwhile, the creature pursues Simon, who escapes and is teleported back to the hospital to reunite safely with Kim. In an epilogue, Daniel and Allison are shown holding hands in the netherworld beneath a giant black pyramid. And that's how the void ends.
So what happened?
Well, I suppose that Daniel dies, Allison dies, and either at the moment of death or, just before he dies, he tackles Powell into the, other netherworld, whatever it's called, the void.
Yeah.
In doing so, killing himself or trapping himself there.
Yeah.
But he's allowed to be there with Allison, or Allison is also there because she's dead.
So where's Powell?
I don't know. This was my big question from the end of the film, because it seems to have a slightly confused ending in the sense that and this is probably basically a good way of describing the film. It has an idea of what would make a good visual dramatic ending, but it doesn't have the mythology or story to back it up.
No.
So I think what they're going for was he's offered the chance to live forever as a hideous monster with his wife in some capacity.
Right.
Instead, he chooses to remove Powell from this world, and because he's the one reciting the incantation, the portal can't sustain itself without him, so it
Right.
collapses. The monster is trapped in the because Simon runs away from that sort of
Area,
magical
yeah.
basement area that they're in, and it sort of shuts on the monster.
Yeah, and everything goes back to normal-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think when they enter the sort of sub basement level, they're actually entering this sort of in between world.
Right. I mean,
It's all very poorly defined. I think.
I watched this alone with lights off, TV. I know front and center, paying attention for the whole movie,
Mm.
and I just did not know what the hell was going on for most of it.
Yeah.
Even now you've explained it, it's just what the fuck is this?
The film was about 90 minutes long. Because we rewrite the story recaps ourselves, basically in our own words.
Yeah.
That's as much story as you'd get, or it took as many words,
Right. Yeah.
as much space on the page to write that recap of an 80-minute film as it does to recap a 2.5 hour film.
Yeah.
And I think that's partly because it's just quite a confusing.
It doesn't really know what it is.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I tell you, it does know what it is, and what it is a throwback 80s practical effects splatterthon.
the problem with that though is if you're going to do that, you have to be aware that people who have seen those films and think they're good
Yeah.
are going to think your film is shit unless it's really good.
But I don't think they will, though, because so many of those 80s films, a lot of which that we've watched, don't have a good story. They have that
Yeah.
thin, there's a bad person, there's a cult, there's a whatever.
Right.
Basically, this hits every single trope of that era and that genre that you would expect.
I see what you mean. I think it's a bit. I don't know. I mean, the one thing that I kept thinking of watching it was The Thing, and we're going to talk about The Thing a lot, I guess, because that is the closest.
Yeah.
The closest one to it probably, and it is not The Thing.
Well, you described it earlier as a love letter to 80s horror. And I think it is, but it's also a greatest hits package.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got The Thing's tentacles, you've got cultists, which are in loads of 80s movies.
Yeah.
You've got the Day of the Dead-esque sort of man having his guts eaten,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
swearing. You've got the Dawn of the Dead stuck in a location surrounded by people. You've got the alien-esque belly explosion.
Yes, and the crawling inside the belly as well.
Yeah, and you've got the evil doctor, right? These are all tropes, right? They're all the greatest hits.
I guess at the end when you've got the woman on the bed, and it's kind of like a Invasion of the Body Snatchers, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's like a greatest hits album.
Yeah.
And like a greatest hits album, they're all, good songs, but they don't have a through line in the way that an album does, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So it's basically the same as that. It's someone who's gone, what do we like in 80s horror movies? We like this, we like the belly, we like the, tentacles, all that sort of thing. Let's just pack all of that into a film and then work backwards from there.
Yeah, that's basically it. That's the problem.
Yeah. And I guess we haven't really said whether or not we enjoyed it. And I think basically it's an enjoyable film on that level. If you watch it just going, this is 80s trash, and I'm watching it for the special effects and the splattery gore, which it does in spades. It delivers that. Then I think there's some enjoyment to be had.
I don't know. I don't think that's enough. I understand what you're saying, and if you are in the market for that, then it's fine.
Yeah.
But I think I was in the market for something more. Because the trailer is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
It makes it seem like it's going to be a movie like The Thing, a movie that is paranoid and intense and has and uses physical effects, which we always say are, the better option.
Yeah.
In an interesting way, and it does those things, but it's not. It hasn't got any of the tonal things that we liked about The Thing and that we liked about Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Sure.
Those things worked because they had characters and they had a story, whereas this is just garbled. It's a mess.
Yeah. The Thing, even though there's a lot of argument, a lot of discussion as to who gets infected when and all that sort of thing, and it's quite intentionally so it's quite sort of ill-defined. You know, in a vague sense, you know how people get infected or
Right.
people how people get taken over, right?
Yeah.
It's like any bit of it can touch you and then, you know, it can replicate you basically.
Right. Yeah.
Right. In this, it's like you've got the nurse going mad and then she turns into a monster. And it's like, has she been infected with something?
Yeah.
Has she gone mad? Is it like a black magic thing?
Yeah.
You've got the cultists who presumably are just humans who have like some sort of interest in this.
Yeah. But you know what interest? 'Cause
No,
that's never explained.
you've got Dr. Powell who gives like incantations. You've got the hospital setting is like is like abandoned because there's a fire beforehand.
Yeah.
And in the basement, there's like a sort of, you know, mysterious abattoir type
A laboratory thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and like all these deformed people. It's like, are they monsters from the void? Are they humans who have turned into those things?
Yeah.
Are they people who are infected? Is it black magic?
It's
It's all so cloudy
Yeah.
and not in the sort of way that is like intriguing.
No, exactly. I mean, ambiguity and mystery in horror movies is almost essential, right?
Yeah,
and
there's something that we talk about all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, say something like Alien. Alien 1, you don't know where the alien came from and it doesn't matter. You don't know what it is,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. In It Follows, which is probably one of the best modern horror movies, you don't know what the thing's from. It's just, these are the rules. You've got to survive.
Yeah.
And compare it with It Follows, right? The opening. You've got the opening of It Follows, and I don't mind spoiling the opening scene of a movie because that's not really a spoiler. A young woman is pursued by an unseen force and she's terrified of it and you don't really know what's after her.
Yeah.
And then it flash cuts to her mutilated body, right? And you're thinking, who killed her and why? That's basically the question, right? Who killed her and why?
Yeah,
And-
or what killed her.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, right? Because she's quite badly mutilated, so it's, you know,
Yeah,
what killed-
it's disturbing, yeah.
yeah, right? But then compare it with this, where you've got the opening scene where a woman is shot in the back and then burned alive with diesel.
Yeah.
It doesn't give the movie a lot of room to get more shocking at that point.
No.
And like that, you've set the bar too high.
Well, that's like a Manson murders type thing straight
Yeah.
off the bat, and then obviously you're supposed to think these guys are the baddies. Look at this evil thing they're doing, and then they turn up and they're sort of like secondary protagonists.
But they're not.
But you
yeah.
can't really sympathise with them other than the deaf guy. But that's because he's deaf and young,
exactly.
and that's it.
Yeah, right. Compare it with The Thing again. 'Cause I said we'd be doing this a lot, right?
Yeah.
So The Thing is a character study, right? As much as anything else. McCready, who's played by Kurt Russell, he's an everyman. He's got charisma. He's quippy. He's likable, right?
He's also a dick.
But McCready,
He has like his personality is basically.
dickish charm.
Well, yeah, but he also threatens to like burn every single one of them with a flamethrower about 5 minutes into the film.
yeah, yeah. Well, the stakes are higher. At that point.
Yeah.
Whereas, okay, compare him though. He's likable though. He's He's Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
Right? Compare.
Deputy Dan.
Is his name Deputy Dan? Right. Compare like fucking like last week's movie. Jeff Goldblum, very likable. He's a likable character played by a man who's made a career of playing likable characters, and it's incredibly tragic when things go badly for him.
Yeah.
Whereas the main character in The Void, the first introduction to him is he's sleeping on the job.
Mm-hmm.
Then he sarcastically responds to his police hailer, and you're like, this guy's a fucking dick, right? Then,
There's one thing you hate, it's sarcasm.
and then he assumes a victim of violence, which we've seen is brutal violence, is a drunk teenager.
Yeah.
And you're like, none of these things are endearing.
Mm-hmm.
He's a cunt to everyone from then on as well. It's just a dickhead the whole time.
Yeah.
And like unrelenting dick to everyone.
Mm.
And the movie falls into a common trap of confusing having a tragic backstory with creating a sympathetic character.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
like it's possible to have a miscarriage backstory and for it to be affecting.
Yeah.
But in this, it's just we drip fed the facts across like I said earlier, an hour and a half of movie in such a hushed and stilted, like euphemistic way that it's almost impossible to understand it or care about it because you have to filter through this like maniacal exposition that's going on around it, and the characters. He's just so unlikable. It's like having Frank Begbie as your leading man. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I don't think he's a particularly charismatic person, but I don't think he's No, I think Begbie is very much a villain.
Yeah.
Like he's not a villain. He's just like a sort of
A
like
knob.
basically
He's
if you're going
irritating.
for like the Chris Pratt like hero,
Yeah.
you know, like where he's sort of sarky and he like quips and stuff. Basically, you have to back that up with him being like exceptionally good
Yeah.
at everything else.
Yeah.
Like in Jurassic World, Chris Pratt is amazing as like a dinosaur handler.
Yeah.
And like physically, he's an incredible specimen to look at. Whereas Deputy Dan is basically not a very good police officer, but also like not a great person to spend time with either.
No, exactly.
So it's like you sort of have to have one or the other if you're going to just introduce him and just go, this is him. Like,
Yeah.
you know, this is your protagonist. I hope you like him. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't really work.
I mean, the best protagonists in horror movies are the ones where you want to give them a hug when it gets bad. You want to
Right.
you want to help them.
Yeah.
Like, if
And he
Follows is a
goes
good
through,
example.
like, this is a guy who euthanizes his wife
Yeah.
because she's like become host to a hideous creature.
Yeah.
It's a pretty nasty thing. Like, I mean, without, well, I won't say, there's another film that we've covered a little while back, which
Yeah.
a character had to do something similar. I'm not even
Right.
going to say the name of the film because it's going to be obvious what happens at the end of it now. But I think you'll know the one that I mean.
Toy Story.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Woody, you heartless bastard. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a messy situation, isn't it?
It is, but that doesn't make it like he's annoying. It's badly acted as well.
Yeah.
Like all the supporting cast are just irritating. Like the character Kim, fucking hell. Like just what is she supposed to be? Is she supposed to be like, hey, I'm free spirited? Is she meant
Well,
to be?
she goes from being like edgelord,
Yeah.
like look at all these wounds in this book that I've got, to being confronted with it in real life and being horrified, and then you'd presume the next stage in that arc is her like stepping up and being like,
Yeah.
but instead what happens is she's too scared to do anything and then she hides for the rest of the film.
Yeah, so that's not an arc.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
That's a line. It's a straight line. Yeah, I mean, we're picking this to pieces a little bit. I think there's some very arresting imagery. Like the cultists, I think, look really stark. Especially when like the blue and red lights are flashing on them,
Right, yeah.
and there's like a huge crowd of them outside.
That's quite cool, yeah.
Some of the like creature design and things is good. I like the sort of giant black pyramid ending. That's quite cool.
That can't be practical effect.
Oh no, that's not. I meant the practical effects are cool, comma, like next phase of the sentence. I just like. I feel like if you're gonna do here's what I thought about the fact that it's like this throwback 80s thing. It looks too clean.
Yeah,
like it's because obviously it's shot on modern
digital,
cameras,
right,
like
yeah,
digital.
yeah.
It just looks too clean and
Polished,
crisp
yes,
and polished and
yes,
everything.
correct.
Right. Like you almost need that like VHS dirt, like grindhouse
Exactly it, yeah.
look to it. Like you said, there's not much to be invested in, but the practical effects are really good.
They are. But here's one problem I have with it.
Okay.
And we discussed this off air, so you won't be a surprise to you. But the one big fight, so you've got the fight towards the end, and there's a fight in the middle, which is kind of like the set piece there,
Yeah.
where they attack the monster with axes,
Right.
And
It's Beverly Monster.
Yeah, right. They attack her with axes to try and kill her, and it's a group of men. Right, and if that had happened in something like The Thing or something like Alien,
Well, there are scenes that are like that in The Thing.
Yeah.
And scenes like that in Alien.
yeah, exactly, right. You don't get a good look at the monster because you're either seeing it from someone's perspective and they're hiding, or the monster darts out the room, or like the camera can't bear to look.
Or the camera's focused on these characters that you care about and they're like horror.
Right, exactly.
Which is, an effective.
Whereas this movie's idea of obscuring your view of the monster, which is an effective tool, right? An effective way of
Sure.
keeping you in keeping the mystery of the monster, right? It's just to flash a strobe light for about 6 minutes.
Well, it's like a fire alarm, like emergency flashing light or something,
Yeah.
isn't it? And it's chaotic
Yeah.
And I get what they're going for.
Yeah, it's
like,
meant to be chaotic, like you
yeah,
said.
chaotic, like panic and all that sort of thing. But again, it's just like
It's abrasive.
yeah. Again, I think that's the sort of thing that works better when it's like grimy,
Yeah.
like 16mm film.
Yeah.
Like, do you know? Yeah, it's just it's such a product of another era that I just wish it had been made then.
Yeah.
And like I wish that like we love practical effects. We watched The Fly last week because of its practical effects, and that's why we paired it with this film because
Right,
we wanted to
exactly,
talk about practical effects. And they're good. They have weight, and they're like wet and messy, and they look real because they are.
Yeah, and the actor has to interact with a physical prop
Yeah,
rather
exactly.
than having to just wave their arms around.
Yeah, and this film is at its best when there's all the splattering going on and everything like that. Like the abattoir sequence, and you've got like, I presume, a contortionist like walking, doing a crab walk type thing. All that stuff is great. But like, I just wish it wasn't in service of a film that is so from another time period.
Right.
Because we've seen it. Like we've seen all of these things that are in this film. It would be so interesting to see like a really good practical effect movie
with a
with
modern
like
setting.
Yeah. I mean, this is a strange point of comparison, but the Star Wars films, the two recent Star Wars films, have been lauded for their use of practical effects and practical sets and creatures and things like that. Like all the creatures in this are good. It's just the film around it is just it's aping a genre and era of film that is dated now, and it's not updating it.
No, it's not bringing anything to the table.
Yeah,
there's another thing. I mean, you said that it's kind of the practical effects are the punctuation marks, and the rest of it's just boring. Which I think you said that right. You'd agree with that?
Basically, I mean, like you end up, the practical effects are good, but they're to such a huge extent the main focus of the film that everything else gets neglected.
Right. It's including, I think, the soundtrack. Right. So you'll have a scene where they're fighting against the monster, and there's a soundtrack under it, like like you'd expect in a horror movie, and then it'll cut to the woman who's pregnant, and it's just no sound at all, silence, and then they stop. You have to build the pace of that scene again from nothing, and you've gone from like intense dread to nothing. Whereas a smarter movie like It Follows, like It Comes at Night, like The Survivalist, which we covered once, would keep a tone throughout the film, which keeps that dread going, like a low hum, which tells you something is wrong and keeps you unsettled. Whereas this just goes silence. Then we're going to have a conversation, and it's very unaffecting. I think for that.
The thing that I think is a good example, or a good point of comparison, other than obviously 80s horror movies, is that it feels like a video game story.
Yeah.
In that you arrive in a place, here's the setup, there are monsters,
mini games.
Yeah, and then you have to go, you descend a level, you fight a boss, you descend another level, you fight the big boss at the end. And the story is basically like supplicant to the violence.
Yeah, essentially. I thought of it more like it could have been a very good comic book. So
I don't read comic books. Mate.
No, I know you're not enough of a nerd, but you think of it as like it's cut out the opening scene with the petrol because you don't need that. It starts with a guy taking a guy to the hospital, and then everything just gets chaos from there, right?
Yeah.
And you could have one episode. I thought would be good. One issue of the comic would be the journey out to get the gun from the car, and you can have the run-in they have with the cult members, and meanwhile you've got the arguments happening indoors, the drama there about should we go and get the pills. Whereas in this one, it's just garbled. You get that in about 3 seconds of discussion, and there's no drama to it. It's just trying to get on to the next. It's a mixture of trying to get on to the next
set piece,
but doing it in a way that draws the movie out. They could have done the movie in about 5 minutes.
I think I'm disappointed in it, and but then I guess it does achieve what it sets out to achieve.
In a way, yeah. I don't think it does really. I think they think it's much better than it is. I think making it, they were like, this is a serious film. That it hasn't got, like we said when we watched something like From Dusk Till Dawn.
Mm.
Like that's a movie which is unpalatable because it doesn't realize that it's a parody.
Mm.
It-
I
this is similar.
guess what, if they are taking it seriously as they make it, they're doing so in the same way that like the directors of Friday the 13th Part 8 take it seriously. But the fact is that watching it now in 2018,
yeah,
the world has moved on
Yeah.
from that,
exactly.
and they haven't.
Exactly it. And yeah, you can't make that film without a wry smile. You know,
Yeah.
There's no like knowing scenes where someone winks at the camera and says like, oh, you know, shall I open the door? I wonder what's behind here. There's none of that like fun that you could have with the film.
Mm.
It's just bleak and dreary and boring, and then a good special effect.
The Void. Well, Joe, with all that said, it's time to move on to our signature segment, How to Survive. How would you survive the void?
So, if I was anyone in the movie, my one idea is just hide,
Okay.
and then you survive.
100%
100% of the characters who hide in the movie survive.
Kim hides and she survives.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that not like heavily context like based? Like if Daniel, we can't change the motivations of the character. If Daniel goes after his wife,
Yeah.
at what point is he hiding? At what point would you advise him to hide?
If when they got there, right, they said, oh, there's loads of people outside. Just hide.
What, all 10 of them,
Yeah.
including the like mortally ill pregnant woman?
Yeah, just hide in the locker.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
If did anyone hide in this movie?
Yes.
Did they survive?
Yes. But
Then there's no problem.
it doesn't apply to the people who were like in the like weird in between basement mythical layer of reality.
When they went in that abattoir place, as you described it, if they'd hidden,
Yeah.
would they have survived?
No, because what happens is they walk in, and when they realize, but basically by the time they realize what is happening, they're already being surrounded by
Zombies.
Yeah. I mean, there is one good special effect in that section, which is the head.
Yeah.
They walk in and there's a undead thing, I guess, trying to kill itself.
Yeah.
By repeatedly smashing its head against a pole.
Yeah. And it's driven a hole through its head.
Yeah.
It's pretty bleak.
It's pretty grim. Yeah, good effects though.
Yeah, very good.
The Void. I think this is a bit of a mealy-mouthed survival idea because I mean, if everyone hides at the start, they're going to be like, Dr. Power, hide with us.
Oh no, I really must go and look downstairs for something.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, right? You know, old Powell cuts off his skin.
Yeah.
And something like Bev did that before.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very good face makeup. It's just like red paint.
Yeah.
That was like underwear. I was like, oh, a bloody face. And he's meant to have cut all his skin off. And then he turns
it's a bit
into
Event Horizon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on the topic of Dr. Powell, towards the end of the film, he does that classic thing of offering Daniel like a deal, you know, I'll let you, you know, you can live forever with your wife in the, you know, in the void, in the netherworld or whatever.
Yeah.
Would you interpret that as being a spurious deal?
Yeah.
Like, why bother offering him that deal? Just kill him. There's no reason. Like, Daniel isn't actually central to the plan at all.
No.
He's there by accident. He doesn't need Daniel to be there or his wife or anything. So just
kill him. Yeah,
just kill him. Like, just kill him outright. do away with all the torturing him with visions of his wife and child and all that, because it does not help you attain your goal.
It's not mission critical.
No, exactly. It's completely unnecessary, and it leads to the total failure of all of his plan.
Yeah, it's bizarre. So you're saying
Don't kidnap Alison. Everyone thinks you're dead. That's fine. You're free, and
well, he did use her for some tree experiment.
Yeah, but that's not related. It doesn't appear to be related to anything that goes on in the climax.
It's just being a dick.
Yeah, literally is just going like, I'll just kill this woman with a big tree
thing.
vine thing.
What's that about? I suppose he had to explain his plan to someone. Otherwise, we wouldn't know what was going on.
I guess that is.
Otherwise, we'd end up confused.
Yeah, and otherwise, Daniel would have no reason to go after it. It would have been better if his wife was pregnant.
Yeah,
or something. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, don't bother with any of that. Just get killed in inverted commas. Go, oh no, I'm dead. And then when everyone leaves, get up, go to your mythical basement, do all of your plan.
Yeah,
job done.
Yeah. Just say, I'll take this girl downstairs to the basement.
Where it's safe. Yeah.
She hasn't got to kill her grandfather and all that shit. Presumably he'll die anyway when the void opens.
I tell you what, Joe, there's an awful lot of needless violence in this film, isn't there?
What happens if the void stays open?
I don't know. Is it like it's all going to, like the sort of hellish place they're in, is that like what the world will become?
I don't know.
All right. How about you? Any more ideas?
Yeah. So who else survived the film, if you don't mind me asking?
The deaf guy.
Yeah.
Is your advice going to be deaf?
He's not actually deaf, he's mute.
Right, okay.
So important distinction.
Yeah. He's deaf mute though, isn't he?
No, he's not deaf. He's got his throat cut out.
Oh yeah, that is right.
So there you go. What I would say is, how did he survive?
He ran. Well, he set his father on fire.
Yeah.
And then ran away.
Was it his father? You sure?
Yeah, I think they're father and son.
They don't act like it.
No.
Anyway, the point is, he survives by shooting people and not fucking about.
Right.
With explanation. Because he can't talk. He can't explain his...
Right, okay.
What's in his head.
So, he they've literally cut the chat out of him. Yeah.
The exposition is gone from him.
Yeah.
So he has an option of shoot or run.
Yeah.
And he
takes the shoot option 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, and he wins every time.
Yeah.
Something that Daniel doesn't do.
No.
He doesn't have a gun. He does shoot someone. He shoots that.
Yeah, he gets a shotgun.
Yeah.
At some point, doesn't he? And then Vincent obviously does a lot of chat.
Yeah.
Chats enough for him and his son, and he ends up on fire underneath a hideous monster.
Yeah, that's true. And the Powell, he does a lot of chatting, a lot of explaining.
Yeah, and he ends up
being supervillain stuff.
He ends up just not returning in the film.
Yeah.
He goes into the void and then he's not in the film anymore.
Yeah. Where is he?
No explanation.
Unnecessary.
Yeah. Okay.
When you feel aggressively confused by a movie, it's never a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, sometimes it's nice to come out of a film, like, thinking, oh, I wonder what that ending meant.
Yeah.
But it's not so nice to come out of a film going, I don't know what that ending was. Like, I don't know what happened.
Something like It Follows. Yeah. I keep bringing it up. You can pick apart the ending and say, oh, I've got a theory, it's this. With this, there's no way to pick it. It's just
there's no room for like theorizing. No. It's just the events that we are shown are confusing.
The data you have is oppressively confusing.
Oppressively confusing. Yeah. Well, on the topic of Vincent and Simon again, the misleading opening sequence that we mentioned earlier shows them burning a mortally wounded woman.
Yep.
And then Vincent does this at the end to the reborn monster.
Mm-hmm.
So based on that, it appears that they've drawn some link between burning them and the monsters not returning.
Yeah.
So why don't they do that at any other point in the film?
But he does grab the alcohol, doesn't he? So he's prepared to do it.
Right.
And they don't come across any monsters other than
They
that.
do. They come for the abattoir's full of them.
And what do?
They don't burn them.
They try. He does burn them.
Does he?
Well, yeah, that's how he dies. He
No,
burns
that's that. He gets burnt
Yeah.
underneath the big monster. And when they're fighting off all the little monsters, they're just like doing generic like
Yeah. Resident Evil.
Yeah. Fisticuffs.
Yeah.
Um
Shooting off hands and stuff.
yeah. And like clearly there appears to be some sort of like thing where if you die, you then come back as a monster. So why aren't they telling everyone else in the hospital, listen, you've got to burn everyone?
Yeah. Man, a few words, isn't he?
What, Vincent
No.
probably has the most words in the most lines in the film.
And they're all just complete scenery shooting.
Yeah, basically all the monsters that we see being burned appears to do for them.
Yeah, but
So
that's
that's
everyone who gets shot in the head dies as well. Everyone gets their eye cut out with a scalpel dies.
fine, but the monsters specifically.
They're the threat.
I mean, it's not even true actually, because the big monster gets set on fire but doesn't die.
Oh yeah. How do they kill that?
It gets
still there.
locked in the void, doesn't it?
Or the anti-room
What's
to
your
the
next
void.
idea? The waiting room.
Just climb on the roof of the hospital and
Yeah.
wait there.
Okay. What, and like barricade the things. Again, the problem with that is that Dr. Powell is
He's
he's
at
the
work.
turncoat, isn't he?
Well,
He's
get
Carla.
him on the roof with you.
Hmm.
And then if he goes, I've got to go downstairs, you go, no, you haven't.
What
are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Why would you possibly want to go down there?
I've left my papers
Don't
down
worry
there.
about that. We've got guns. We've got weapons.
No, I need to get something heavy from my office. Maggie, could you give me a hand with that? Why are you getting the pregnant lady? Well, I mean, she's not doing anything else, is she? So,
There, what can do it good?
yeah. Maggie be like, yeah. No, I'm up for it. I am up for it. Yeah.
He dies. How does he survive? He gets stabbed in the throat.
Because Joe, he's discovered the secret of resurrection.
But that doesn't make sense because he dies.
Yeah, he dies and then he comes back, but then he gets pushed into the afterlife.
Yeah.
But now he can't come back.
Why? Where is he?
My next idea. The cultists that we see surrounding the hospital, they probably outnumber the people in the hospital by about a factor of 10, would you say?
I'd say so.
Just storm the hospital.
They've all got knives as well.
They've all got knives.
Yeah.
The people inside the hospital seem to have like 2 knives between them.
And they do have a shotgun, but then they don't. The cultists don't seem to mind dying.
No, exactly. They all die when the monster gets born as well for some reason, don't they?
What? Yeah.
Is there any sort of like culty reason that they wouldn't do it? Like that they have to preserve the ritual or something like that. But the thing is, though, is that like none of the stuff that goes on in the hospital, other than the fact that the pregnant girl is there, matters to the ritual that we see.
Yeah.
Is it just movie logic?
There's a thing you said just now, which is for some reason,
Right.
and that is
That is
the
the
film.
void. How to survive the void.
If at the end of your recap,
everything happens for some reason.
Exactly. That's about all the explanation is given.
Like in a good film, it's like, you really pore over every frame of it because everything happens for a reason. In the void, everything happens for some reason, presumably. Oh dear.
Powell dies for some reason.
Yeah.
Comes back for some reason.
Dear, oh dear.
Crazy.
Lovely stuff. So that's about it for The Void. Next week, we are tackling an as of yet untackled threat. And And untackled is presumably what will happen to some of the victims in the film. Because it's Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah. Do you think this is going to be the sort of thing where it's like, hey, everyone loves it. It's like an 80s horror classic, a shocking one. But then you're going to watch it and just feel depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next week, Cannibal Holocaust. So I've never seen it. I know nothing about it. So it should be an interesting one.
I've seen one
about.
still of it.
Is it the woman?
Impaled.
Yeah. Yes. So Cannibal Holocaust next week. Look forward to that. If you'd like to get in touch, and if you've seen Cannibal Holocaust, or if you've seen The Void, or any of the films that we cover, and you have any thoughts, howtosurviveshow@gmail.com, Twitter @howtosurvivepod, facebook.com/howtosurvivepod. You can also leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, as that really helps us find a wider audience.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening.
Do you know where else you could find a wider audience? Outside Weight Watchers. Because they're wider people because they're fat.
More of that fat phobia next week.
Cut that out, please.